Well, hello, it's Keith here, and we've got a special episode. We're looking at my new book, which is called Learn Multi-Platform Assembly with Chibi Akamas Volume 2, or alternatively, Learn More Multi-Platform Assembly Programming with Chibi Akamas, if you prefer. Now, we've got the original book here and the new one, and both are printed in the same way by Amazon KDP Print on Demand. The new book is basically a alternate version of the first book, if you will. The only difference really is that it covers 5 different assembly languages. The original one covered Z80, 6502, 68000, 8086 and ARM. The new one covers ARM Thumb, 65816, 6809, PDP-11 and Risc-V. So this is a second edition covering 5 new assembly languages for people who weren't interested in the original 5 or interested in more than the original 5, shall we say. So this is the second book. The first thing I have to say is a big thank you to everyone who bought the first book, because without them the second book wouldn't have happened, which is why there was no volume 1 on the original book, because I didn't expect there to be a volume 2. When I wrote it, I wasn't even sure that it would be accepted for the KDP printing. I didn't suspect it might be good enough, but apparently it was. So as I say, that's a big thank you to everyone who bought the original book and made this possible. So what is the new book like? Well, the first thing to point out is the first chapter of the new book is basically an updated version of the first chapter of the old book. The beginner's introduction is still here from the first book. I've gone through it all, and I've put a variety of improvements in. I've added some extra content where I felt it appropriate. I've tried to make it clear where I felt the descriptions weren't quite as good. I've extended the content to cover the new processors covered in Volume 2, but also the other processors I'm thinking of covering in if there ever is a Volume 3 and Volume 3. So it should be much of a broader introduction now. We'll say just a few tweaks here and there mainly. The big new feature for the first chapter, though, is there is now a new section on sound. Where is it? Here it is. There's a new section on sound terminology, which was totally absent from the first one. If you've read the first book and you've bought the second one, assuming you understood the introduction of the first one, I would suggest you just skip over the introduction of the second one and just read the new sound section. Obviously, if there's bits you were unclear on still before, then reread them in the new one, because hopefully the descriptions might be a bit better now. But as I say, generally speaking, if you've understood and read the first one, just the sound bit of the first chapter, and then go straight to the other chapters. Now, the other chapters are in exactly the same format as in this one. Each one comes with 3 examples and a summary instruction set. So the examples are, roughly speaking, the same where that is appropriate, by which I mean for the systems that have a graphical display, we have the same 3 examples: the hello world, the drawing a bitmap, and the moving a bitmap with the joystick or keyboard. For the text-only based systems, which is the PDP-11, which we're using a server emulator, and Risc-V, which we're using the Risc-V RAS simulator, those have 2 different examples. The first example is still hello world. The second example is how to show the contents of a register as hexadecimal or octal as appropriate. And then the third example is how to read the value into a register. Now, the idea being, if you're testing PDP-11 commands on a console, or if you're testing Risc-V via the simulator, being able to get input from the user and then change it with the commands and then show the results back to the screen, I thought was a good way of getting started on those systems. So that's what we've got. As I say, basically the book's content is intended to be almost exactly the same as the original one. So I was very happy. I was happy with the ideas that I put into the original one. As I say, some corrections were made to the first chapter and some improvements. And the other thing is, I've put a lot more time into the new one, even though the book looks very similar and the content's very similar. I've spent a lot more time checking over the content this time and testing the examples and things in the processor summary. As I say, with the original book, while I put quite a lot of effort into it, I wasn't actually sure it would sell or even be allowed to be sold. So with the success of the first book, it justified a lot more testing and proofreading for the second book. Now, the second book is almost the exact same size. It's actually 10% bigger. You can't really see the difference. I was sort of expecting a more chunky difference in the size, being as it was 10% bigger, but it doesn't really show through, which it doesn't make any difference either way. Now, one thing that you might notice in the book that you might think is interesting, I'll tell you this, you'll notice that the last few pages have got these notes sections, and it's got like a grid as well on the last pages, and you might think, well, that's a bit of a silly thing to have in the book. Why no one's really going to use that? And I'm fully aware that no one's really going to use that. This was a KDP trick, you see, the print on demand trick. You see, if you have to increase the number of pages in your book, then the alignment of the front cover may no longer work. So in the original book, there was a few there were a few corrections I wanted to make, but they would have actually increased the page count, and I was worried that would cause the alignment to go out. So with the new book, I've put a few extra pages in the back that could be intentionally removed in an emergency, so that I could, just fiddle the page count by 1 or 2 pages if the necessity came in. So anyway, there we go. The book is available now, as I said before, on Kindle Print and also the digital version. Now, I would ask you to consider, if you can, buying the print copy. Now, with my original book, I've been doing this so-called buyer's remorse scheme, where if you take a photo of your print book, I will give you the PDF for free, so that you get the advantage of the digital and the advantage of the print. I will be offering that for this print version as well. The only thing is, because of the Kindle digital exclusivity rules, I can't do that for 3 months, which is why I'm trying to push everyone to print, so I can stop offering the Kindle digital at all, which isn't likely to happen, being as 20% of the sales so far is still on Kindle digital. But as I say, I would like everyone to buy print. I think it's better all round. It gives me more options. It allows me to give my patrons and the buyer's remorse instantly if I could only do print, and also you get a physical book that when you become tired of it one day, you can pass it on to someone else or sell it, which you've got a long-term asset, whereas the digital ones will all probably disappear one day. So as I say, I would really strongly suggest you buy the print version if you can do, but I know some of you may be in territories where shipping is a serious problem, so I do want to offer the other options. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to go and look over the source documents that I use to print the book, because what I always want to do is I want to show you how you can create your own books yourself. If you've been inspired by this, if an idiot like me can make a book, then everyone can make a book maybe. So as I say, I'm going to show you the tools that I used and the files I uploaded, and the point that it's true of both of these books, but it's a big point I try and make, is that this book was made entirely with free or open source software. So if you have no money, you can write a book yourself. You can do the front cover art yourself in free software. You can upload it to Kindle for free because you don't have to put any money down, and you can print it and maybe you can make some money from it. So as I say, entirely made with free and open source software there. So that is something I think is worth doing. Anyway, let's go over and let's take a look at the other content. Okay, so here we go. Here is the main body of the document then. The entire book was written with LibreOffice Writer for the text editing. Now, the graphics were all done with Earthenview mostly, so the drawings were done with Critter. Now, with regards to the screenshots of the source code, Earthenview actually has a scrolling capture option, which works quite well with Notepad++. It doesn't work with some other applications, but it does work fine with Notepad++. Now, with regards to the book, the tables of contents and the indexes, these are all automatically generated by LibreOffice. So these are calculated automatically from the titles. So what you need to do if you're going to write a book is you need to have a bit of a play and make sure you understand how to use the different styles, because if you use them correctly, they'll do a lot of the work for you. So, for example, using the headings for the main chapters, heading 2 and heading 3 for subtitles and section titles, things like that. Now, if you do that correctly, first of all, you can use this to automatically build your table of contents, but then you can also have this navigation option, as you can see here. So you've got this navigator here, and then you've got all of the chapters and all of the sections. So the graphics terminology section has all of these here. And then these will all transfer through, and you can actually then use these as part of the PDF export. Now, once I've finished my document, I export it as a PDF from LibreOffice, and the PDF you will see has all of these same chapters automatically transferred. So all I need to do to export the finished document is go to LibreOffice, make sure I've changed the graphic setting. I had to set the images to lossless because the JPEG compression was blurring them too much, so make sure you use lossless compression. Export the PDF, and then this PDF was directly imported not only into the Amazon KDP print on demand option for the print book, but I also used the Kindle converter, the free software to convert to a Kindle book, an electronic book, and I did no more changes to it. I just imported the PDF and clicked save, and that was the entire job done. As I say, it only makes 20% of my sales, so I can't really consider doing anything like a reflowable document. Reflowable ones will resize depending on the viewer's hardware, but that would be too complex with regards to these diagrams and things, so unfortunately it's not possible for a relatively low number of sales. But as I say, you at least get the indexes transferred across to the Kindle digital book readers. So that's definitely something that's worth doing. And as I say, the important thing to bear in mind is just make sure you understand how to use the styles and make sure they're transferring across into your index, and also that they're exporting as you want if you're exporting as a PDF. Now then, the other thing is at the end of the book, if we go before these notes sections, which as I say were intentionally sacrificial, we have these indexes. You've got the general alphabetical index, and then you've got these sectional indexes. And what you have to do is you have to basically index all of the items you want to appear in those alternate ones. And basically, if we go down to the sections, I've manually selected each of these and added them as an index. Now, what I did on my main machine, this is my video machine, it's a separate computer, but I had a button set up here. You can customize the layout. And so I had a button added to the menu bar for the indexing options to allow me to quickly add and correct the indexes, which was a big time saver. And I also I set some macros up for coloring the usage examples and the register highlighting. So those are specific color themes that I added here as styles. And I had key presses so that I could press Control R for register, and I think Control I for index or something, I forget now. But as I say, basically you can shortcut things like that. Really, as I say, if you've got an idea, work out what you need in advance, experiment, and just do a bit of research into the software and see what the software can do to speed things up for you. And as I say, if you need tables of contents and you need headings and subheadings, definitely look into those styles and get it all figured out. If you search for most things with LibreOffice, you will find someone's already done it and can help you out with it. So that's definitely something I would strongly recommend. Now, once you've got your PDF that you can print, as I say, that is literally all I imported. No more work other than checking it online. There's an online preview which is very good. It's very accurate to what ends up being printed with regards to the alignments of the edges of the book. It's spot on. Now, one thing I didn't realize originally, and I only noticed today, is I ordered about 20 author copies of my original book, and something like about a quarter to a sixth of them are misaligned. This one's very slightly misaligned by about 2 millimeters on the edging, and it does warn you that kind of thing. It says, oh, well, you've got to, for example, you've got to make sure you don't have any important text at the very bottom, which is why the Learn ASM is slightly offset. So it does warn you that kind of thing can happen. But as I say, the previewer will spot any mistakes you've made, but there is some risk of print slip, it seems. So you have to accept that it could be 2 millimeters out or so on the final document. But anyway, if you go to the Amazon Print on Demand, what you can do, and it's got better since last time, is you can export a template, and it will tell you based on your page count, and you will only know based on your final page count, well, this is the size of your book. My book is A5, but I didn't know how thick it was going to be until I knew how many pages it was going to have, which, as I say, is why I put a few blank pages in the end that I could remove in case of emergency. And before, it wouldn't tell me because A5 is a non-standard format according to Kindle, but you can easily override it. But now it told me, oh yes, well, this is the size of this area. And then all I did is I created a new document in Scribus, which is the free desktop publishing software. I basically added the width of a normal A5 page plus the width of a second A5 page for the back cover and the width of the spine, which Kindle told me. And then I just basically realigned all of my objects to get the front cover to fit for what Kindle needed. I then exported this one giant, this is a single page, it looks like 3, but I just did it as a single page. But basically you just export this giant page here as a single PDF. You import that PDF along with your manuscript of the text, which, as I say, came from LibreOffice, and then the preview will show you the front page, how it's going to be aligned, and it draws dotted lines down the spine so that you can see where it's going to go, and it's got guidelines for where the areas that could shift, around the edges where it will be visible or should be visible, but you can't put any important text. So, as I say, it really helps you out with all of that. So the important thing really is you can do this all for free with free software. The graphics, the bitmap graphics were all done with Critter. The basic imaging editing was all done with OpenView. The image cutting for chopping up the source code examples was done with a program called the Castle Split Image. It's an old program, but it works fine. The main document was done with LibreOffice. As I say, everything was done with free software. So if you're feeling adventurous and you want a challenge, you can maybe make your own book. Anyway, that's all I've got to show off today, so I'm hoping you might be inspired to buy my book, and maybe you'll be inspired to have a go with your own. So I'll finish off by just showing my new little advert for the new book. As I say, the new book's available. I've also dropped very slightly the price of the old book, so if you've not got either, maybe consider buying both if that interests you. And as I say, you can get the PDF for the first edition, the first volume, now, the Buyer's Remorse, if you buy the print one, and I will be offering it definitely for the second volume in 3 months' time when the exclusivity expires. So as I say, please consider buying the print one. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen today. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.